In our yesterday session, we started creating the token. That means by using JWT libraries, how we are creating the tokens. So that is what we are trying to understand. So what we did is, as part of that, so whenever we want to generate the tokens, we have to take JWT libraries into our application. So that what is the meaning of JWT libraries is, so we are already have predefined functionalities, predefined libraries, jar files, nothing but we have to add these three jar files. And see guys, this is the JWT 12 version 0.12. So very latest version, and we are working with the latest version only. So we have taken the latest version 0.12 point of view. We are making the JWT token generation and all. So what we observed when we are yesterday, when we are generating the tokens, we saw a lot of deprecated methods, and we saw some kind of changes in the JWT when comparing with the JWT 0.9. So that means earlier I used to teach, or I used to provided details 0.9 because 0.12 released in the 2024, but I used to provide most of the times 0.9 point of view. The sessions covered earlier, and even materials also updated with 0.9. But when it comes to 0.12 version, so there are a lot of changes happened. So that is the reason we are seeing a lot of deprecated methods. So deprecated methods means those methods are going to be removed in future, but in place of those methods they given some other methods. Such a way they made lot of deprecated methods which are from the 0.9, but 0.12 point of view they given new methods in that place. Concept is same, only thing is some better implementation, better methods, like that. So that's why we saw a lot of deprecated methods yesterday. And so anyway, I just gone through the 0.12 yesterday. What are the changes happened and how and all. So let's see with respect to 0.12 only. So whenever it is 0.12, we have to take these three jar files. Okay. So even I updated the material also. I'll share the updated material with you. I updated material from 0.9 to 0.12 point of view. So I'll share it with you once I'm done all the changes. Okay. So now let's see here. Yesterday what we did here, it is, yeah, this is what the class we created, and we are trying to generate a token. So this is the logic for generating the token. So we understood yesterday what is the logic for generating the token, right? So to generate a token, we need always a secret key, and we have to set expiry time also. So based on our requirement point of view, we can take any time. So we taken 5 minutes of time. So if you observe here, yesterday we have something methods like set subject. So we have setter methods. We have setter methods. But generally in this case, what these guys are did here, it is in 0.12 based on the builder design pattern. They given directly, they remove the set word, nothing but it just like they given the property name, and then simply we are passing the value. So these are the latest method names we have to use as part of 0.12 in the JWT libraries. JWT 0.12, these are the methods we have to use. So if you are compare yesterday things, yeah, if you see from comparing with yesterday, I don't know why it's not opening. It's not opening, but anyway, we saw yesterday these methods with set subject, set issue date, set expiration, like that. So we have to use this method. So now that's why we are not seeing any deprecated warning messages here. So please use these messages from your side also. Okay, this is all about the generate the token. So as here input is the email ID. Email ID in the sense, in our case, that is what unique user ID. So and then what is the token creation time? So it's just like issued at what time? Issued at means at what time token got created. And what is the expiry time for the token? We given 5 minutes, current time plus 5 minutes. And we created a token, sorry, we passed a secure secret key, here it is. Yeah, this is what one more small change they made in the 0.12 point of view also. They given something like decoders, okay, classes, and from there, okay, so if you see here io.json web token, so they given some decoders and all. From that we are decoding the secret key, and finally Okay, we are getting secret key object. So this is the javax.crypto secret key. So it's all cryptography point of view, like encryption and decryption. So secret key object we have to create like this. We have to create key bytes based on our secret key point of view, and then we have one more predefined class called as keys class. Okay, utility class for securely generating the secret class and key pairs. So that means we have to pass again that key bytes byte array into keys level, then you will get secret key object. So now that secret key object we have to use here, it is generally. So for that what we did is we call this method here. So then this is the secret key. Generally we taken this key. Again the secret key is also we are decoding based on the base 64 encoding decoding algorithm point of view, base 64 bits, and we are passing this. So and then we got the finally security secret key, here it is. After that we started validating the token. Okay, so if you want, yeah, so first thing is before going into the validating the token, okay, so if you see here this logic, what is the meaning of validating the token? So this is what we need to start from today, validating the token. So this is where we got yesterday issues and all. So what is the meaning of validating the token? Now, for example, understand the idea here again. If user ID is Dilip, okay, something like Dilip IT, whatever it is. For this, a token got generated. Okay, a token generated, so and so token like this. Assume this is the token, some token got created. This is the token. Okay, fine. Now, this token validity, it created at 909. 909. So that means the expiry at 914. It is expiry at 914. So this is the token created for Dilip IT user ID, and it is created at 99 and expire at 940. So now what is the meaning of validating this token? Now one more user called as ABC user sent a request for accessing one of the protected API, something like delete profile or whatever it is. While sending this API access, in this case, this token sent, this token attached it to the header level and sent it to the server. Now server started validating this token. Server started validating the token, whether it is the right token or not, it is expired or not. So that means what are the two things we have to consider while validating the token? For example, first thing is time, expired or not, expired or not. Okay, so the time right now 9:11. So 9:11 means the time right current time is 9:11, but expiry time is 9:14. So right, so that means yes, it's less than means yes, still the time it is expired means no, not expired. That means valid token. With respect to time point of view, valid only. With respect to time point of view, it's a valid only. With respect to time. Okay, but that is the only one thing we have to consider? No, right? Why? In this case, yeah. So in this case, what we have to consider one more thing is user ID. So that means this token created for which user? So whenever server started validating token means it will read the time and it will compare the current time and expiry time. Then it will find out like this. As well as what it will do is it will read user ID also from the token. User ID also from the token. User ID also from the token. Now the moment it is reading user ID from the token, what is the user ID it got? Dilip IT. The actual token created for the Dilip IT. By using Dilip IT, the token is getting created. If you see here, generate token, create token. So here we are passing unique user ID, whether it is a email ID or whatever it is. So you are passing some unique ID. So based on that, this token got created. Now, while reading also, I got Dilip IT only. But actually in this case, The token requested by which user? Okay, requested user is ABC, but actually the token user is Dilip ID. So that means something is happening here. It is. That means what is the problem in this case? Yeah. So in this case, what's happening here? It is the token is misused by ABC. It's not actually created for ABC user. It's created for Dilip. So that means what's happened? ABC is not the person of. Okay, ABC is not the person of. ABC is not Dilip ID. So that means the requested user ID should match with the token also. That's why we are doing all this authentication. Otherwise, there is no point of authentication. So that means the token generated for which user, the same user has to send same token again to access any REST services, to access protected APIs. But in this case, some reason ABC user sent a token which is created for the Dilip IT. So that's why Dilip IT is got from the token. So while validating what I'm doing, I'm reading the user ID from the token. I received this token as input. So by decrypting this token, what we are doing, we got two informations. One is expiry time. Okay, time point of view, good. So it is having time. But user ID Dilip ID I got from the token, but actually requested user is ABC. So that means data is mismatching. So that's why this token point of view, what I can say like authentication is failed. So that means in this case, the current requested user is who ABC. That's why what I'm trying to say is, hey man, username is mismatching. That's why it's an invalid token. Invalid token. Scenario. So finally what we decided? Invalid token. This is the scenario we have to consider. Now second scenario, if I take in one more scenario, assume again this same token generated for Dilip IT. Same token generated for Dilip IT again. Now the token created at 9:15 and expiry at 9:20 based on our 5 minutes duration. Now Dilip IT is the user only sent a request for something like slash upload slash reel or whatever it is, protected API. Now while sending request, this client application front end added this token also, whatever given earlier server. So now server started validating it. So again server will do what? Two things again. Again same thing. What it will do? It will start time point of view expired or not. So with respect to first point of view, time. First one is time. Okay, whatever it is. So you can what consider. So time point of view, it is expired. The right now time is 9:16. The request came at 9:16, less than 9:20. So that means time point of view it is a valid. Still it is having 4 more minutes. That's why time point of view there is no okay. It's a valid token. But second thing, I have to reading user ID. So when I got user ID from the token, I got Dilip ID. And even user also requested, actually the request came from the user called as Dilip IT only. So that means in this case requested user ID also Dilip IT. Requested user ID also Dilip IT. So you got token from the token Dilip IT, even requested user also Dilip IT. So that means both the cases token is a valid. So valid in this case also it's a valid. So now I will say this person is secure. I mean authentication is success. That means token is a valid token. Finally token is a valid token. So use case 2. So similarly if you take in one more case, okay, so similarly if you take in one more use case, what is the use case here? It is assume, yeah. So what is the next use case is The token time creation is 9:15 and expired at 9:20. That is what, okay. Now the request came at 9:21. So that means the request time came at 9:21. Is it less than the expiry time? What is the expiry time? Actually 9:20. So that means in this case, what happened in this case? The token with respect to time point of view, it is invalid token. That means why? Because you sent the token, whatever the token, maybe user ID is matching this time. User ID is matching. Oh, that's okay. But you sent a expired token. The validity is up to 920 only, but you sent the request after 920, 921. So that means time point of view invalid token. So either of them is invalid, nothing but your token is invalid. So your token is invalid token. This is how this is the this is how we have to write the logic now. So that means from this overall what you understood guys, whenever a token comes for the validation, what we have to do, first thing is we have to get the time. What is the expiry time? So what is the expiry time? So get the expiry time. Next, we have to get user ID also, subject, nothing but user ID also from the token. So that means total 2 details we have to get from the receiving token. So once we got that data, we will compare with the current time of system as well as current user who requested. We will compare those two information with the current. So in this case, once you got this information, you will compare with the current time. Okay, so based on that, you will select whether it is expired or not. And as well as once you got the user ID, what you will do, we will do the compared with the requested user ID. Requested user ID. Both we will do. So in both conditions, it is true. That means your okay. So your token is finally a valid token. Either of them is false. That means token is a false, invalid token. So to this is how we have to write the logic. Now let's come back here. So what I did here it is, I'm taking this method called as validate the token. So in this case, first, what I'm doing, two things we have to do, right? One is getting the expiry, checking the time expiry. Okay, as well as get the user ID. So what I'm doing is, first of all, I written a method called as get user ID from the token. The input is token. From the token, how to read the user ID means, here you have to use a method called as parser method. See, while creating the token, what is the method you use? You are building the token. That means you are creating, you are generating. That's why builder method. This time, token is already there. You have to read the token. That means you have to open the token information. You have to read the token information. So that's why in this case, parser method we are using it. So that means in this case, reading. In this case, creating. Okay, while reading, you have to use the parser method. So you are parsing the token. Nothing but parsing means just exploring or opening or whatever it is. You are parsing this token. Verify with. So that means I said yesterday, even this point we discussed earlier also. Whenever a token got created, see here, earlier for this user ID, this token is created, you used some secret key, right? Then this token got created. Similarly, while decrypting also, when you are decrypting also, you need the same secret key again. Then only you can get the value, what is the real value. So that means same secret key you want again. So that's the reason what we are doing is we are saying like parse the incoming JWT token by applying this secret key, by applying the same secret key whatever you used earlier for the creation point of view. So once you have done that, then what it is so you given the token information. Parse signed claims is the method. Here you are given the token value. Token value. So now then finally what will happen with these 3-4 lines, especially this 3-4 lines point of view, your decryption is going to be started because key is matching and it is trying to open the key. It is trying to open the token with this key. That means nothing but decrypting. Then finally you got the payload. Payload means something, you know the payload, right? What is the payload, guys? You saw in the JWT, right? Second part. The user information point of view, whatever you will give, that is called as payload. This is the payload, right? So this is the payload. Generally here you will have always the user IDs, issue time, expiry time, everything you will always have in the payload. This is a fixed data always. Okay, this is a fixed data always. But usually the data, the dynamic data always available in the payload. Expiry times, user IDs and everything. So that's why what we did here it is. Once you applied the key on the token, you got the payload. Okay, that means encrypted payload. Sorry, decoded payload. You decoded the code, decoded payload. From that, simply what you are saying, get subject. So while subject means what? Email ID, right? Similarly, what you are doing, get subject. So that means what you got, guys, finally a string, nothing but you got user ID in this case. You got user ID in this case. So that means what we did right now is, this is the step I explained you right now. Get user ID from the token. Okay, we are ready with user ID now. Similarly, get expiry time also. Check if the token has expired or not. So what we are doing, again input is token only. So in this case also, if you observe, same logic again in this case also. Because this time also what you are doing, you are parsing the token. You are parsing the token. So we are parsing this incoming token. What we did, same parsing, verify with the secret key, build. That means until get payload, in this case also common. Until get payload, in this case also common. So get payload. That means you got all this payload information. That decoded data you got this data. So earlier in the decoded data you got expiry time. Similarly you have what? Subject also. Right? Now in this case you are reading subject also. See, you can write this logic in different way also. Okay. So you can write everything in the single method also. You can write both in the single method also. You can take until this one object, claims object. From that claims, you can get subject, get expiry, then you will get expiry time off, like that. Okay, so it's up to you can core Java standards, how much you know. Based on that, you can write down the logic. But only thing is, generally, we should not mix multiple functionalities into single method, guys. Generally, the standards is all about when you are writing some functionalities, one method should carry only one functionality. It should not be like more than one functionality. So that's why what we did is we segregated like getting user ID from one method. Second thing is getting expiry time from another method. And those two things I combined here. Finally, this is the method is validating the token. Internally it is calling get user ID method, so that this method is calling, and internally it is calling is it token expired or not, then this method is calling. So in this expired token expired point of view, what we did, same thing again, you got get expiration. Expiration means it is giving expiry time. So in this case, we have a method called as after method, guys. So what is the meaning of after method? After is the method from the date class, from the Java util date class. Okay, it's a predefined method from the java.util date. So that means it is saying like expiry time after the current time. So in this case, simple. I'm writing like this: expiry time after current time. After current time. After current time. Okay. So expiry is the after current time. That is how this method is working. So that means, for example, assume you got expiry time. Example point of view, I'm writing in this case to explain this method. Assume you got expiry time as 9:26. Okay, 9:26. But current time is what? After 9:27. Current time is 9:27, right? 9:27. So that means what is this in this case? Is it true or false? Means false. right? 926 is not after 927. That's why false. Now, if I take in one more example, expiry time, assume you got as 930, 930. In this case, while you wrote the token 930. Now, current time is 928. So that means what is the point you are saying in this case is 930 after 928. Is it after 928? Yes. Yes. Yes means true. True. So that means its token is still, it's not expired like that. So in this case, the terminology is also most important. If you used is token not expired, yeah. In this case, you will get what? False. Sorry, true you will get. Token not expired means yes, true. That means not expired. That means it's a valid token. Not expired means valid. So is token not expired means yes, like that. So like that, what we decided here it is finally we are checking in this case, is it expired time or not. So now both the things I concluded here. One is what? Whenever the token came for the validation, whenever I'm validating the token, I'm giving input of token as well as requested user ID. Requested user ID. So that request user ID, what I'm doing here, user ID from the token is matching with the request user ID or not. If matching, true, and token is not expired, true, both are true, then finally is token is valid means yes, true. Either of them is false, like based on this use cases point of view what we discussed. Either of them is false, then automatically is valid token will become false because we used AND operator. So see here how much core Java knowledge you required to understand this entire logic. It's purely core Java, everything. Okay. So that's why don't ignore core Java when you are practicing anything. So this is how now finally what we are going to do here it is we are going to generate the tokens and we are going to validate the tokens by using JWT framework. By using JWT framework. Okay. So let's test this validation is working or not. Then we will integrate. So yesterday I said one more point. Right now we are writing JWT class. JWT class. Once you are writing the JWT class, we have to integrate the JWT class along with the security layer. So still we are pending. We have to integrate. We have to integrate the JWT class with security layer. So we will see that process also. Meanwhile, what you can do is we written yesterday JWT controller, right? So this is giving the token. Similarly, what I'm doing is let me start my application. See, security module is little bit difficult only, guys. Okay, don't think like it is easy, but if you need a good knowledge, what my suggestion here it is, you have to practice at least 3 to 4 times, and I'll tell you at last how to understand this entire flow. Okay, let's go here. Localhost 8080. So create a token. Token created for Dilip@gmail.com. Okay, so I got this token. Right? So this is created at 9:31 and it is going to expire at 9:36. So now what I am doing is I am passing same token here, fresh token. So I given the latest token right now here and I given valid Dilip@gmail.com. So that means simply I'm just verifying it. Okay. JWT validate token. So I given the token what I received right now, hard coded here, and I given user ID also. Correct user ID only I given. So that means token is not yet expired as well as it is correct user ID only. So that means what is the expected result in this case? True. Whether it is right or wrong, see. We are just verifying our logic is working as expected or not. See here, true. That means what? It's a valid token. Still it is a valid token. Now see here, user ID retrieved from the token, dilip@gmail.com. Token expiry time at 9:36. Current time is 9:32. So that's why still it is a valid token. See, I assume the requested user ID is something like abc@gmail.com. Okay. So now let's send the request. Time wise, still it is having until 9:36. But user ID point of view, see here, false. False. So why user ID retrieved from the token what Dilip IT Dilip@gmail.com, but actually requested user ID is abc@gmail.com. So that means time expiry point of view still it is having the time, but user ID point of view this is different. And what you got from the token when you decoded the token, this is the ID we got. When we decoded this token, we got this is the ID, right? So where this line we written. See here. So that means while you decoded the token, when you decoded the token, decoding the token, okay, this is the user ID you got. But actually requested user ID is in our testing point of view, ABC we given. So that's why token result is finally invalid token. Invalid token. So if you check after, even if I given correct user ID, dilip@gmail.com. So now token point of view, still it is having time until 9:36 and requested user ID also dilip@gmail.com. So let's see. So you are getting true. That means it's a token, valid token. So after 9:36, if you send a request, by the time token is expired, so then you will get false. So that means what is the logic? What we are trying to understand here it is our logic is good now. So our logic is good now with respect to creating the token as well as validating the token. As well as validating the token. Both are right. Okay. So now what is the step we completed so far right now is JWT token generation. Okay. So the next step is, so we will consider expiry time and user ID comparison. So while validating the token, what we considering current time with expiry time as well as requested user ID versus token user. So these are the two factors we consider here. It is based on that we made the validate the token. So with this, we are ready with our JWT token creation and validation logic. Just we are ready with this class. Now what is the next step? I said we have to integrate. Now we are configuring. Now see in this overall architecture, let's go to this architecture. In this overall architecture point of view, so far what we completed, guys, we completed right now a small thing called as, okay, a JWT class for validating the creating the token. It's having just data for creating and validating the tokens. That is what we completed. But actually, we have to configure this JWT class along with the security layer. So let's start the real security configuration now. See, tomorrow when you are having WAUth, I said WAUth, right? So that means in this case, some reason you will not use JWT. So in this case, WAUth will come. So WAUth will come. So whatever, whether it is a JAuth or WAUth, whatever it is, then you have to integrate with this security layer. Okay, let's see how to do that. Yeah, a little bit concentrate here again. So the next step is configure security Spring Boot security layer. Now you are doing the actual Spring Boot security configuration. Now we are writing the coding with respect to Spring Boot security module point of view. As of now, we added the what? We added only uh, dependency. Okay, that means I think I commented it out. I will enable it. Okay, so we just added the security layer. Now somehow we have to configure this security layer. Let's see here. From here you need little bit attention again. Just see. Okay. Again, few more points let before entering into the programming in this case. Okay, this is all about JWT point of view. Let's take new one. Okay. So now let's concentrate here again. Few points we have to understand in the architecture. Then we will discuss. We will write the programming and everything. Okay, what are those points? Let's try to see. Okay. So what security layer saying in this case is, okay, whenever we are working with Spring Boot security point of view, this is entire Spring Boot security point of view. So whenever a user, we understood right earlier. I mean, in our previous explanation also. Let me open that one also once. Yeah. So what we understood earlier is, so from this, what we understood, registration we will do so that data will go and store in the database level, right? And then we will do the login. When user is did the login on successful validation, we will generate the token and we will give it back. And next onwards, the token will come in with respect to authentication point of view, right? So this is the story we understood. Now in this case, what Spring Boot security is saying is, first thing is Spring Boot provided few predefined interfaces. Spring Boot security layer. Okay, Spring Boot. Yeah, Spring Boot security module provided few predefined interfaces to enable user authentication and authorization. To enable user authentication and authorization point of view, Spring Boot security module given some predefined interfaces, and by taking those interfaces, we have to do little bits. Okay, we have to override some methods based on the Spring Boot security module point of view. So what is that? Let's try to understand right now. Okay. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, now see here. What are those is? First thing is what Spring Boot security module saying here it is. Whenever you created web application, generally what will happen? In the DB level, you will have a table where you are having user credentials. The actual user credentials table will be there, right? So credentials table. So for example, in our case, what is the table we created? User underscore information. So that is the table will contain always username and password, right? Give me a minute. Let me open the DB. Yeah, this is the table we created. This is the table we created in the database point of view. So here we will have the actual credentials like Dilip at the rate. Whenever user did the registration, so the actual credentials we will have Dilip at the rate gmail.com, Dilip 123, something like that. All users' credentials are always stored in this table, user information table. right? So this is the table we decided to store all our users information in this table. Only credentials, especially where you will have username and password point of view. Okay. Now what Spring Boot saying in this case is to enable the authentication at user authentication point of view. So generally in Spring Boot point of view, what we will do, guys, we will write a entity class. We will write generally based on the table point of view. So whenever we have a table, what we used to write, we are going to write some entity class. We are writing entity class in Spring Boot security point of Spring Boot JPA point of view, right? So the entity classes we will define generally for every table. Now what Spring Boot module saying in this case is whatever the entity class, wherever the entity class you define for the user information table. So the table name is what? User information. User underscore information. I'll tell you why this small thing is Spring Boot security is expecting. You will understand once you did the coding, then again I will explain the entire architecture so far. Whatever the bits and pieces we are doing right now, those are all things we will conclude as a single architecture point of view, then we will understand very clearly, then we will understand. Okay, so entity and table. So here you will write maybe something you created a table Java class called as user information, right? So this is our entity class name. So we created an entity class and table, right? Now what Spring Boot security module is saying is wherever or whichever the table, okay, so whichever the table is having user credentials, user credentials, okay, whichever the table is having user credentials, okay, associated entity class should implement should implement should implement, okay, a interface called as user details from security layer, from security module. So that means there is a, I said, right, predefined interfaces will be available. So we have to define this user details interface from that entity class. Okay, that user details interface is from the security module. So let's go to our entity class now. So let's go to our entity class. Okay. So why I chosen this entity class? Because here only you have user ID and passwords. This table is always, okay, responsible for maintaining the username and passwords. And this is the entity class associated to this table. So that's why what it is saying is override the, so provide the implementation for the interface called as, so that means it implements, what is that interface called as user details. So see here now. User details org.springframework.security module. Security module. So what is the use of providing implementation for this user details? We will understand. Just try to understand. Provides core user information. Implementations are not used directly in Spring Security for security purposes. They simply store user information which is later. Okay, authentication. I'll that's what I tell you. So there are few other steps available. Once we are understanding all those details, once we configured all those details, we will understand again what is the flow we did and all. We will try to understand. Okay, so don't worry too much about security layer. So it's one time work in every application. But if you know the basic flow, what's happening, how tokens will be exchanged from client to server, server to client. Okay, so what are the basic steps you know, that's more enough. Okay, so let's take the user details interface. So it's a predefined interface. Nothing but might be it is having predefined abstract methods. Provide implementation for all unimplemented methods. Okay, so if you see here, yeah, yeah. So if you see here in this case, what you got? You got two unimplemented methods. I think earlier we have a lot of other methods also. This is also, I think, modified. Earlier we do have a lot of other methods like logged user, blocked user, something like that. We have a lot of overridden methods. I think we do have 6 to 7, 8 methods. I think they removed in the latest version. So anyway, so let's see here now. I'll tell you what is this two methods meaning. Yeah, these are all methods. I think now they made it as default methods. Okay. So Java 8 point of view. See, that's how. See, in previous Spring Boot, I think Spring Boot when I'm teaching Spring Boot 2 or maybe what at what time. The thing is when you overridden this interface or when you implemented this interface, we do have a lot of 5 to 6 okay abstract methods. So we have to provide implementation for all those things. But out of all 6 to 7 methods, yes, really this method is most important and little bit this is also. But rest is very rare case people will use. That's the reason what these people did Spring Boot thought is they made all the methods, the rest of the methods as default methods. Their intention is if really people want these are all things into their project level. Okay, see generally yes, we used to write at that time true only. Is account non-locked true? So we used to write default logic at true. Now, instead of developer writing, they moved these methods as the default methods into this interface itself. So that's why we are having total 2 abstract methods only now. If you refer the material, it will have almost 7 to 8 methods when you are overriding this. Now, all the rest of 5 to 6 methods, they made it as a default methods with true. Okay, in case if you want to override tomorrow when something you are dealing with some logic called as account locking, all these things. Generally, you will see, right, when you entered 3 times wrong password, your account will be locked. So that means the next time, fourth time, when you enter right password, also your account will not work. So that means they are locking your account due to some security reason. Then this value will become false. So like that kind of scenarios. Account expired. Sometimes assume when you are using especially banking applications. Today you registered your net banking username and password. That password generally they will give validity for 6 months. Assume if you are not okay changed the password within 6 months. After 6 months that password will not work. So that means at that time what they will do is they will make one more column in the table level. We taken only 4 5 columns, but in the real time point of view generally I mean based on the requirement it's not like every project. I'm not saying like every project. So based on the requirement point of view in different projects they will maintain different columns. Is account expired, account expired, is account blocked, okay, is account logged, like that we'll have a lot of columns expired, blocked, locked, like that. So we for every column point of view they given this security layer methods. Credentials non-expired, yes, credentials means your password is not expired, like that. So your account is enabled or not. Sometimes admin side team, you know, right, sometimes our accounts will be blocked by admins in some of the applications point of view. So then you will utilize all these methods when your requirement is demanding like account locking, account blocking, credentials expire, making credentials are expired, okay, enabling the account, disabling the accounts, right? See, for example, sometimes what will happen, all of sudden you will see in the news also, right, all of sudden Instagram team they will lock your account. Okay, they will lock your account. That means you are using your Instagram, your okay, you know your username, passwords and everything, but actually due to some reason they are locking your account. That is what it is. They are disabling your account. Sometimes they will remove all your content. That nothing but they are disabling the record. So that means they will have one more column here called as account to disable or enable. Disable. So if it is true means your account is disabled. By default false. That means my Instagram active account is by default active. By default it's enabled. That means I can use it as a user. If the admin team made it as false, The next time whenever you are making the authentication with the Instagram account, in the back end, what they will do, they will verify this one also. Along with you given right credentials only. You given right credentials. You are feeling like I given my right credentials. Why still my account is not opening? Because they disabled your account. Some reasons, maybe we did some some unethical things or whatever it is. So that is how they disable your account. So that's how they will have the controls also. So it's all, these are all columns comes with the real time requirement point of view, but not every application will have same columns. Okay. So that's why they made, I think, default. It's a good thing actually. So earlier we used to write all these methods, uh, overriding point of view mandatorily. Now they made it as default. It's a good thing. Okay. So now let's come back to these two methods, especially what are these two methods? Here, granted authority. So authority means authorization, guys. So when you have to go with these things is this method, what you have to override in this case logic is when you have role based authorization. What is the meaning of role based? Yeah. So what is the point of role based? Roles. Let me give that details. Role based. So that means sometimes when you join into any company or whenever you go somewhere else, assume I'm the person. Let's take Dilip only. So whenever I joined into my current company, in my current company, what is my role by default is okay, I want to do development. So that means developer is the role. See, not designation. I'm talking about roles. What roles I'm performing in my office daily. So developer is the one of the role. Along with developer, with my experience, so I'm a manager also. Assume I'm a manager also. So that means as a manager is nothing but as a lead also. Definitely a lead also. So that means in different scenarios, I'm acting as I'm playing a different role. So that means the moment I connected with my user credentials in my office point of view, I have to perform in different scenarios, different roles. As a manager, I can see all my employees, okay, my report is information also. I can access their information also. What is their leaves? Okay, I can see their leaves. What are the I can approve their leaves. I can remove their leaves. Okay, I can give feedback for their salary point of view, whatever it is. So I used to do this report this information. I can see that as a manager, right? Along with my information, I can see that one also. So in this case, whenever Dilip logged in, so these are all roles will be defined already in the system level. Dilip is having three roles: developer, manager, lead. Now assume you joined as an employee, some other person as a fresher, you joined into same company. Then what is the role you will get is you will get only a role called as simple a developer role. You are not the lead, you are not manager. So what is the meaning of in this case? What is the role he can do? Only he can see his own personal information. He can't see any others information. Why? His role is developer role. So based on the developer role, he can't access. He is not authorized to access others information. That is how logic has to be designed, implemented. But based on the manager point of view, I am authorized to access my reportees information. I am authorized. So that's why in this case called as role based authentication and authorization. So this is called as role based authentication and authorization. So very rare case, role based authentication and authorizations you will get, guys. Very rare case. I mean, you will get, but I'm not saying like every time. But mostly when it comes to the front end to back end integration and one service to another service integration, microservices communication point of view. Okay. So when you are having security point of view, it's all about exchanging the token only. So that's why just ignore about role based authentication. Once you got clarity on the security point of view, just explore what is the role based authentication, some small extra things. So that means now when Dilip is logged in, Dilip user information is loaded from the DB. It's okay if I have columns in the DB table level, if I column, like, if you take in these columns, assume I have one more column in the user information, like email ID, password, first name, mobile number, expired, blocked, logged, disabled, like that. Assume I have roles, something like that. Now here I designed as developer role, manager role, and as well as lead role for Dilip point of view. Similarly, for another employee point of view, Suresh point of view, it is only developer. So that means the moment whenever I loaded Dilip information, okay. So this is generally we will add all this into entity class level. Now we are added all this into entity class level. So this get authorities method will give all the roles of the user. Right now we are not dealing with any roles. So that's why we are not doing anything. Okay, I'll confuse. I'll remove this confuse. I'll do one thing. I'll make one more thing. I'll make it as full name. Otherwise, we will confuse with this username with this username. So that's why full name. And here also it's a get full name. Okay. So let's come back again. So that's why we are not dealing anything here. Right now we don't have any roles concept, right? So that's why I'm leaving it as null only. But when it comes to the username, yes, this is the most important method here it is. This is what important here it is. So what is the meaning of this method here it is? What is the meaning of this get username method is returns the user name added to the authenticated the user. Cannot return null. It should not be null. Why these guys are saying here it is? The idea behind this method as part of this interface here it is, what it was trying to say here it is, okay Dilip, you created a table, but out of all these columns, which column I have to consider always as a, in the authentication point of view, which column is unique column, unique ID, which column value you are preferring always as a user ID. So see, in a real-time application point of view, I can make email ID or I can make mobile number, I can make something else. I can give something like customer ID, employee ID, person ID, okay, product ID, order ID, something like that, right? But in this case, what Spring Boot security is saying is, okay, out of these four columns, which column is I have to consider as a username? Out of these four columns, which column I have to consider as a user ID? So I'm telling to the Spring Security module now, hey security, consider email ID as my user ID always. Consider email ID as my user ID always. So that whenever internally Spring Security module loaded this object, so then automatically what will happen? I'll get information like, okay, something for a user ID point of view, dilip@gmail.com, password Dilip123, and mobile number some 1234567, full name Dilip Singh, like that I'll get. But internally, whenever it calling this method, Spring Security layer, because this class is given by Spring Security only, this interface, that means definitely this object will be used somewhere else by Spring Security module. That's why we are doing all this process. Whenever it is calling this method internally by Spring security layer calling simply get username method, then what is it is getting? Dilip@gmail.com. Assume you created one more Spring Boot application, something like your user ID itself. You created a column called as user underscore ID. Okay. In that case, you are not allowing email IDs like Instagram IDs, like me underscore Dilip underscore Singh, Dilip IT Academy. So these are all unique IDs only, right? In the Instagram point of view, generally these are all unique IDs. So in such case, what you will write here, you will write in this case, you will take identifier column as user underscore ID, right? User underscore ID, not email ID. Okay, in this case, you are not restricting email ID. So then you will write like user underscore ID. User underscore ID. So the moment whenever security layer calling get username, then what you will get next time onwards in a different application point of view, me underscore Dilip underscore Singh. So that means whatever the column name you are using for your unique user ID point of view, whether it is a user ID, email ID, person ID, customer ID, employee ID. See, sometimes assume you are working on the employee application, all employee management. Then generally employee ID is my unique ID always. Definitely employee ID is a unique ID. I don't want to consider email IDs, only employee ID. Employee ID a password. My employee ID is something like 712478. This is my employee ID. So that means in this case, what is the column you will give? So assume you written like employee information as a table. Okay, so in this case, you return class name as employee information, extends user details. Okay, sorry, implements user details. Then what you will give here in this case, generally what you will write employee ID, password, mobile number, employee name. Then what you will give here, employee ID you will return here it is. So you should not confuse with this method name. In this case, Spring security intention is okay, Dilip. In your current application, what is your unique ID? Is it an employee ID? Okay, give employee ID. If it is email ID, give me email ID. If it is user ID, give me user ID. If it is something like customer ID, give me customer ID. If it is something like person ID, PID, give me person ID. Like that it is asking. But when we started our application, what we decided, email ID is always our unique ID. In our authentication process, user registration and login process point of view, or our requirement point of view, what we decided, email ID is always our unique user ID and respective password as a credential. So we decided. So that's why I'm saying to this Spring security layer, out of all these columns, email ID is always username, nothing but a unique ID. From when you are differentiating security from one user to another user point of view, consider always email IDs as unique ID. Like that, this is the method name we are giving. So that's why what it is trying to say here, it is returns the username used to authenticate the user. So what this method is saying very clearly is returns the username used to authenticate the user. Definitely, right? In our JWT token creation point of view also, I said, right? One thing is what you are getting from the DB, or one thing is what requested from the user ID, like that. So that's why I given in this case also email ID. So this method is important in this case. Okay. So this is the one thing, first step you have to do that. So in this case, you have to override this method always mandate. I mean, override in this case, okay, but this is here. You have to make sure always providing the unique user ID. So you can create one more Spring Boot application, okay, with employee ID. Then give employee ID here. So that means you're in this, when you are creating the token generation also, the input comes what always, employee ID, something like employee ID. So that's what is the column, what is the value you created as a unique ID in your entire application point of view. That is what you have to maintain everywhere. So in my case, I decided in our application point of view, email ID. So that's why everywhere I'll consider unique ID point of view, email ID, email ID, email ID. While creating the token, while comparing the tokens, while validating the token. Okay, so everything. Okay, I can make the changes also. Requested email ID. Email ID retrieved from the token. So just basic terminology. So just like that. So everywhere email ID point of view. So that's why I'm telling to the Spring Boot is, in my application architecture point of view, we decided email ID as a, that's what. We decided email ID as a unique ID, like that we given this. This information will be used by security module internally. That I'll explain you. So we will have a concept called as Spring Security Context. Earlier we have, right, application context. Nothing but we used to call it as a container. right? Similarly, we have web application context. When you created web applications, nothing but our dispatcher servlet point of view, all this, then internally web application context will be created. So nothing but it will contain metadata of all our beans information and everything. Similarly, you will have security context also. Security context also. So this security context internally holds temporarily the user ID from the DB point of view and what is the user ID coming from the token point of view. That information will be validated dynamically every time. So I'll explain that security context point of view. This method is important. So that's why this interface is clearly provided by the Spring Security. So that Spring Security module will scan the entity class, which class is implemented this interface. It's easy for the Spring Security context. See, assume you have 20 entity classes. Okay, so you have 20 entity classes in your project. A small project point of view, I'm talking 20 entity classes. Now, out of these 20 entity classes, how Spring Security knows that which entity class is providing user credentials or dealing with user credentials. How Spring Security knows that? It's very difficult, right? Because it's a basic entity classes you provided, product details, order details, user details, like that, right? So it's 20 entity classes providing user credentials. So that's the reason what Spring Security is saying is extend with, implement with user details. The class, the entity class which is dealing with the credentials. So now that means what we made, one entity class, we defined with, I mean implemented with the user details. So now Spring Security module scan which classes are implemented this interfaces. This interface, how many? One entity class. What is that interclass? User information. User information is the entity class. That is how it is identifying out of all our entity classes which entity class is dealing with the user details, because you implemented the user details, right? So from that it is identifying internally. So we will see that I'll explain while I'm executing the program once we are done with it. Okay, the next step, second step, what we have to do after this. In this case, again, Spring Security Layer provided, one more interface called as, I think, user services something is there. I'll tell you that. I forgot exact name. See, earlier one is user details. You implemented via entity class point of view. Now Spring Security Layer provided one more interface called as user details something is there. I think, yeah, something like user detail service. Okay, let's see. Anyway, so now what in this case Spring Security module is saying is, okay, we created right now what entity class. For what is the purpose of entity class? To load data from DB to Java object, to make DB data into Java object. Whenever we made a DB call to database, then what it will do? It will give information as a entity object. So for the entity object point of view, we extended it. But similarly, what Spring Boot Security module is saying in this case is, for the authentication purpose, it given a separate interface called as user detail service. For the authentication point of view, it given a separate interface called as user detail service. So we have to create one more Java class. We have to create one more service class. I'm telling you, okay? This time we have to create one more service class which is responsible for implementing user details service interface. User details service interface. So that means what will happen in the current class is nothing but in the implemented class will override one of the method of user details service interface. Implemented class should override one of the method of user details interface, abstract method. So what is the logic we have to override is the overriding logic is all about loading user information from the database to entity object or user details. So that's why, right? That is what we did here. It is right now. So if you see here, what we did, we created a Java class. I mean, we already have it. Based on the Spring Boot security point of view, we implemented this interface in the entity class. Okay. So now we are creating one more class. Let me take the class security authentication user authentication service. Okay, it's a simple Java class. Let's take it as a component class also. Okay, so component means the bean object will be created by container automatically. Now what it was saying is implements a class called as user details service. See, this is the class. Earlier in the entity point of view, you used this interface. Now, as part of our authentication service class point of view, a new class point of view, we are taking user detail service from the package called as security. That means these interfaces are coming from security module, guys. Once you deleted from the pom.xml from that security dependency, then you will not get this class interfaces. That means you will get compiled errors. So the interfaces what we are using right now from the security module. Now what this class is saying, see here it is core interface which loads user specific data, So user details service. So what it is saying, this is the what it is saying. Okay, let me take here. So what it is saying, this is the core interface which loads user specific data. Yes, that is what I am trying to say here also. Overriding logic is all about loading user information from the database to entity object of user details. So same point I'm telling you here it is. It is used to, okay, throughout the framework as a user DAO and is the strategy used by the DAO authentication provider, leave it. The interfaces requires only one read-only method which simplifies support for new data access strategies. Okay, leave it all this. Okay, so let's see what is the one single overriding method, abstract method. See in this case, add unimplemented method. What is the method, guys? User details. Now what is this return type? User details. The method return type. See in this case, load user by name. By passing username, it will return user details. This method signature defined by this predefined interface. That's why we are doing overriding. Now what is the logic we have to override in this case? Okay, load data from DB for a specific user. So that means tomorrow, I mean, Spring Security module will use this authentication class also internally. When we are making the actual authentication, internally it will use this one also. We will see that one also. load data from DB for a specific user. So user ID is already defined by the method itself. So that means what I'm doing is sys out of loading data from DB for of user. Just I'm writing the helping statements sysouts. So this will gives us clarity. These lines will help us to understand the flow. We will add lot of sysouts everywhere. Okay. Now to get the DB from the data from the DB, what we have to do? We have to use the repository. Do we already have repository? Yes, we are already have, right, for that entity class. What is the entity class we created? User information. What is the repository we have? Already we have it, right? We can take help of it. Autovide @user repository. Okay, so now user repository dot find by ID. So yes, in our case, identifier column is email only, right? So you can modify this value like this: email ID, email ID. So the moment you are calling, what it will give? Optional object. You know that point, right? So it will give always as optional object. So let's track. It will give always optional object. Optional of user information. It's a find by ID method. We know that. It's just passing the email ID. Now it's an optional object. So if user info dot is present, that means data is present, then return. Okay. So then return user info dot get method. In case if it is not there, that means user ID not found on the DB level. So this we know that from the JPA point of view. So if user ID is not there, then something else we can say like this out, or we can throw some exception also, like throw new user not found exception. See, some security point of view, what I'm saying is user not found exception. User not found on the DB. Okay, so I'm saying like user not found exception. Okay. Okay, so invalid email ID or email ID not found, whatever it is. Email ID not found in database. Okay, so simple. If data is found with that email ID, then you are just returning that data. If data is not found, then we are throwing an exception and we are saying like data is not found. Email ID found in database. Okay. Mm, yeah, this is the one more thing we have to do. So where we have to use this class, we will come back. We will see that. So again, we have to configure this class. See, if you are observing the hierarchy, we implemented user details interface here in the entity class, and that class, that interface, whatever we implemented, that we are using in this user service authentication class level. Now, similarly, this class we have to configure somewhere else. Whatever the class we defined right now, somewhere else we have to configure again with the Spring security point of view. So we are going to involve, that means what, one more class now. So we are going to involve one more class now. So what I can do here it is, it will take some other time. If again, starting with that new authentication configuration point of view and all, so we have to write one filter class, one configuration class. So it will take some time. So my suggestion is, let's stop until this, because we are already understood a lot of things today. We did a lot of programming today. So just practice all these things until this point of view. I don't think you will get any output. So don't worry about output. Just whatever I implemented so far, just try to do that. Okay, so once you consolidated all the changes in a right way, right manner, you configured everything, then only your security layer will work. Otherwise, you will get some exceptions. Okay, so secure, my application got successfully started. See, you observed or not, the username password is not coming now. Even though we enabled security layer, earlier you observed, right, one time password got generated. One time password got generated when you added the security layer. Now see, it's not generating. That means what? The default authentication system we are overriding. We are overriding with what? User based authentication. Dynamically, we are making dynamic authentication. Okay. And again, as part of this user dynamic authentication point of view also, we will involve token based authentication. So that means that JWT token, whatever class we return, right, that is also we have to integrate with security layer. So whatever we implemented today, service class and this JWT token utility class, where we are generating the token, validating the token, those are all things we will configure into security layer point of view. So that will take again 1 hour discussion to understand very clearly. So we will stop here because we can't complete within 5 minutes. So my suggestion is just practice this by Monday, whatever we did till today. Only 3 things we did, new things. One is JWT util. So this, try to implement this logic, and then security layer point of view. First to do this user details point of view, just implement from the entity class where you are dealing with the credentials, and then give here username point of view the unique email ID, and then define one more service class, I mean component class maybe. So then implement the user details service interface from the security layer. Then you have to override this method. So in this case, you are loading DB data from the DB level. By passing email ID, you are getting all the user information. If not found, throw an exception like email ID not found in the database like that. So complete these changes until this. So Monday we will see. That means by Monday and 100% by Tuesday, our security module will be completed. So by Tuesday, security module will be completed, including testing, because now we are doing complete implementation, right? Now we have to test also. Test means what? Based on our requirement point of view, whenever I am accessing these REST services, no security. Whenever I am accessing, security should happen. And that too, security point of view also, we have to verify sometimes with valid token, sometimes with invalid token. Like that, we have to do all our testing, right? So we'll include the testing also. By Tuesday, it will be completed. Okay, so let's connect on tomorrow, sorry, Monday, and then let's continue from there. Okay, just listen this session multiple times and try to correlate the things. It will not come within 1 day, because see, 5 to 6 years experienced people also not able to understand the security module due to this complexity, due to this, okay, a configuration point of view. And that to the problem here it is, this is not the regular work people will get in every project. Very rare case. Even I got all this knowledge based on the teaching point of view, but not via real time point of view. So that's why a lot of out of 100 people, 60 to 70 people, they don't have much knowledge of security layer. The reason it's not a regular work. The point here it is, it's not a regular work. It's a only one time work. Tomorrow by Monday, assume it is a real time project. Once we are done with this entire thing by Monday, Tuesday, or maybe Wednesday, then in future you will not come back and you will not write anything in the security point of view. You will write all the things related to business point of view, like adding the products, deleting the products, delivery products, order products, returns, kind of thing. That kind of logic you will implement always. When user clicking on delete product, it has to delete. When user applied review comment, it has to add that comment and that star should be displayed. This is all comes under the business logic. So that logic you will work implement for next 1 year, but it's not like security layer you will work on every day. It's only one time work, one time configuration in every real time project. So that's why people will have less scope to work on the security module, but awareness is more important, especially the token based authentication point of view, how token getting exchanged between client application to server application, how client tokens are getting validated. If you have that level knowledge in a clarity, that's most important. That's more enough. Okay.